We're sitting down with someone I've known for over 20 years. And Dwayne, he's the owner of a construction company. It's DRR Designs. And a lot like most leaders, he was used to doing things all on his own, right? And back in the day. But over the last couple of years, everything has changed. He stepped into coaching, and now he's living the dream that he once thought was maybe out of reach. Let's hear it straight from Dwayne.
Before coaching, I learned a trade. It was taught to me from my brother-in-law, and as time went on, I started to embrace it more, and I got even better at it. And even more so, I started understanding somewhat of the business of it to a degree. I knew I had drive. I was always able to take something and further it along. So that's always been one of my strengths. I never really knew how to manifest a business, but I knew I had a desire that a person would deem. So the trade led to me eventually doing work. I started majorly just trying to hone my skills doing work, and it was mostly me and a helper, and I got better at it to the point where I began to be just meticulous. And during the years, I picked up a lot of people that I worked with, but the majority of the work always was me. All the time I was there. I did every aspect of the work. I wore many hats. I tried to do the books.
I was going to ask you, what were some of the biggest frustrations or roadblocks that you kept running into back then?
Factors that I would say that didn't allow me to grow was kind of my own mindset of what I thought people were expecting of me. I just thought that, hey, I presented myself. They expect to see me on site all the time doing all this work. And so that became a factor in my head. People got to see me all the time and see me doing the work. That's the only way they'll trust it. It just really seemed like I was just working for myself. I would never be profitable because I'm working so many hours, man. It just really was a job, And so my desire was always to turn it to something bigger and better. And of course, over the years, because my motto is everybody experience should be the same, whether they're in Scottsdale or South Phoenix. Everybody should have a pleasant experience when dealing with a contractor, and they should be relatable. That person should listen. And so customer service was my driving force, providing customer service and making sure everybody had that experience. And so my clientele grew. I was successful at landing the jobs, working the jobs, completing the jobs, giving quality work, but I was never able to take myself out of the equation to try to grow it.
Yeah, that's what I remember. We talked about 20 years ago about coaching. What held you back all that time?
From the morning I wake to the time I leave out of the house, which most of the time is 5 a.m. and then getting home at 6, 7, 8, 9, o'clock. And that was standard 6 days a week, maybe Sunday, and so I didn't see an out. I didn't know how it could really help me.
You remind me of something God told me one time. You was too busy working to get rich.
That was how time passed. Just ticks on, and before you know it, 10 years, 15 years. And now during the whole time of it, I gained incredible knowledge. I got this talent, I got this skill. I need to push forward. And I did. A lot of successful moments, some not so successful, but I just kept pushing forward.
You did eventually get started in coaching. What finally made you say yes?
Well, I'll tell you. So I met a person. We were on our way to brunch over in the Highland area. It was me, my wife, and we were meeting a few couples. Someone said, hey, actually a friend, his name is Angelo. He runs a barbecue business. So I stopped. I'm like, man, small world, and he introduced me to a lady, and she was heading up. And so he told her I was a contractor. And she said, a black contractor. Wow. She's like, you're a unicorn. You're like
Right.
a rare thing. And so, we exchanged information. She invited me to stay after brunch to the jazz festival. She wanted me to meet this person. And this person turned out to be have a foundation that helps small businesses. And so she wanted me to meet her that day and asked, could I stay? And so I did, but the time wasn't right. I didn't get a chance to meet her. And so maybe a few weeks afterwards, because they were entering me in this course that they did to provide information for entrepreneurs to help businesses go to the next level. And so I
Right.
met with her. She told me what she did, and I was intrigued. She asked me, how much time did I spend on my vision board? How much did I read about entrepreneurs and things of that nature? And I dove into some books. I've had training with Dale Carnegie and things of that nature when I was in corporate America. So I was exposed to that kind of frame of mind. She says, well, how much business do you do right now? And to that point, a year, I probably was maybe 300,000, maybe 500,000 at a good pace a year. She said, Wayne, the level that I see you at, you should be 10 million plus. That right there, put something on my brain, because it reaffirmed that, like me driving past that corner saying, well, hell, I can do that, And so that left an impression. And then she asked me, do you have business cards? I said, yeah, I actually had one. And Jerry, it was so old because I never needed them. I never thought I needed them. My business was really word of mouth for many years.
Right.
That kind of sparked my mind because it said, well, if somebody else believes in you like that, why don't you believe in yourself like that? So more and more it was on my mind. And I would say that I think the crowning point for me that it was on my mind, I was going through a period, I think I shared with you, where I was out in LA. I had to help my cousin. He was going through a end of life moment. And he was encouraging me. I needed something to stay awake. I was with everything that was going on. I was feeling kind of numb and I needed something to rise to. I think that's when I signed up for the course, and it was in the midst of that I had to take a little bit of a break because of what was going on. But when I left out of that moment, I believe that moment enriched me in ways that I didn't really know it could, because a person going through what he was going through, he was still encouraging. And so at that time, she asked me about a logo, the lady, and I said, well, no, I don't have a logo. And so during that time, I developed a logo, and the rest kind of is a little bit of history. So that's how.
But I'm curious, with all of that, I know all of that was going on, which was quite a bit. 20 years I've been asking you about coaching. If you could tell somebody what specifically caused you to say yes this time?
I think that I came to an understanding that my way wasn't getting me the results that I was looking for.
Right.
And so I need to try something different. I need to have a different approach. I need to trust that there's a process and a way that things can be done. And so I think that was the pivoting moment for me to say to coaching.
What surprised you most about the coaching process once you got started?
What surprised me is that it put a name to all of the negative things that I was experiencing that was causing me to fail. Well, I say fail, but causing me to not be at a point where I thought I should be. I didn't have a name for limiting factors or watching or you creating your own damn problems. Psychologically, you program in the wrong way. Your mind is thinking this, your self-doubt, all these kind of things, and was in my mind.
That's funny you say that. I did a post this morning that said, your business is not growing because you don't have a strategy. It's not growing because of you, right? Because we're the ones that have to make those changes. Which takes me to my next question: what limiting beliefs or habits were holding you back that you didn't realize until then?
Well, one is that I always had to be there. People expect me to be on site. Sometimes even thoughts of, can you really do this? Because you
Hmm.
have did it up to this point, and so I would say that was probably the most major was self doubt. Self sabotage. Organizational skills for me is huge. Still, I struggle with the organization of skills, but I'm getting better, and so I would say by far those limiting factors was critical in keeping me down, and most of it came from my own mind.
Can you describe a moment during the coaching processes that really opened your eyes? And is there a particular moment that stands out?
I would say the watching aspect.
Mm.
So I just really never, when I got into thinking about it, and I said, man, I hear your voice in the back. Hey, what the hell you worried about stuff that you don't want for? Why are you worried about what you don't want? And so right now I'm applying that. I'm not going to say I'm perfect, right? These tools, they're in my grasp now. I know them now. I can call on them. And I said, why you focus on you don't want that? So why you keep lending yourself to it? And it helps me to redirect. And that has probably been one of the pivotal things for me in dealing with clients and things of that nature.
That
Probably
makes sense. That's
most profound thing, because I never heard it like that. Watching yourself, and then I've always known that we can reprogram the subconscious. But something profound to me too that I remember, I said, well, we did this analogy about driving a car. When you start driving a car, you got to remember every day. So remember to adjust the mirror, remember to brake, your gas, remember to steer, remember the speed, and this sign, that sign, watching everything, right? And after a while, you just jump in the car, and hell, you can't even remember how you turn the key on, because
right.
you get in and you just roll. And now those routines have been put in a file, and it just calls upon them whenever you want to call upon them. So now that right there, understanding that when you're understanding in myself when I'm creating and when I'm stagnant. And so that has helped me hugely, because in these moments as we speak, I had placed myself in the most uncomfortable position, and I did it intentionally.
Hmm.
Did it intentionally to the extreme. This is how I believe in. I had to believe. I sold my house and I went all in. I paid a comfortable mortgage, and everything was comfortable, and I found myself complacent.
Hmm.
And I could have just left myself there and I would have been all right. But that's not what I wanted. I said, damn it, you better grow some wings before you hit this bottom. And so that's what I did. And so even every aspect of business that I'm doing right now, I'm constantly watching myself. Now, I still suffer from some of the things, but what's good about it is that I can identify them now.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
I find many times that it comes to the same conclusion all the time, is that you've just projected these
yeah.
things and imposed them on yourself and your mind, and you've made them real, and they don't even exist.
Hmm.
So that was huge for
Yeah.
me watching.
That makes sense. That's what most of my clients, everybody would attest to, watching change their life, including me. That's the thing that really shifted me in a powerful way when I
Mhm.
was having major trouble. It settled everything right
Yeah.
down
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I was looking too much into what's going to happen, what I think is going to happen, all the
Right.
things I was making up. Yeah. Well, let me ask you this: what changed in how you saw yourself, in particular, not so much as a business owner, but as a leader? What changed in you over that time, and how you seen yourself as a leader? Because you're definitely leading in a different way now.
I knew that I could recreate myself, and I could step out of the way, and then I could trust it. I mean, I'm gonna tell you a little story. So I ended up picking up a very, very good worker, very good. And, earlier on, when I started embracing these principles, I started backing off,
Hmm.
and trust the process. Move yourself. You can't work in the business. You got to work on the business. All these things in my mind. But here I am. I'm still trying to control that aspect. And so I spoke as a leader to the guys like, hey, this is where I'm going. This is where my projection, this is where I'm going to end up. This is what I want to do and beyond. And so as a leader, talking to people, which I've always been a strength of mine, is to get their buy-in. And I got that full-fledged, wholeheartedly from these. I mean, they bought it. And I'm thankful that they bought it, and because that's what I knew I was going to do. But yet, here's Dwayne, here's the 30-year tradesman. So one of the guys, he said, you must not be ready to go to the next level.
Wow.
And I said, what you talking about? Why do you say that? He said, because if you hear how we going to figure out how to work, we got to make the mistakes and things of that nature, and we got to grow. If you're here, we never know what we're capable of. He said, your tools are different now. You don't
Wow.
have the same tools. In other words, he said, get the hell out of here. And I said, wow. That was at that moment too. He said, your tools are not the trowel. Your tools is not the wet saw. Your tools is not the blades, the tape and mud. These ain't your tools no more. Your
Wow.
tools is to grow the business. That's your tools, the computer, the interacting with the client. This is what your tools are now. This is what you are supposed to be doing. Why aren't you doing that? We're doing what we're trying to do. What we're doing. You preventing us from growing. That's what I got out of that, and that was another moment. And so right now, I'm out of the way, and I grow and work on the business.
I want to talk about, after coaching, what has been your results? In other words, let's talk about, what does your life and your business look like today compared to what it looked like? What's different about it now than what it was?
I had a 2.5 million goal, and I'm working on that aspect. I haven't achieved it yet. So we've built a couple houses, and they have even taken on major commercial projects. So
one thing you said earlier is like your best year probably up until now was about 500,000, but you feel like are you getting close to doing the 2.5 million that what you're going?
I am, my path is good right now. I'm on a good track, and now as we speak, I'm seeking the next opportunities.
So just for the benefit, so I'll have it on tape, because they may not hear my voice, may only hear your voice. I want you to speak to the fact of where you were financially in your business growth and where you are today. And even one of the things you wanted to do was go from remodels to new builds. How many, what's been like? Just speak to those two aspects.
So I've went from about, I would say, 4 to 5 years ago. And right now I am pushing the 1.5 and above. So you're probably a little bit above as we speak right now and doing business. And so I have my mandate, whereas I wanted to kind of limit the amount of remodels and I wanted to go more into the new build. And so that has been successful with 2 major projects and commercial renovation. It was so close to a new build that it could almost be considered within that time span, probably 3 to 4 times as much revenue as a result of trusting the process of the coaching and conditioning my mind to think in a bigger and in a better manner to grow. So I would say that was where I am right now. I was doing my best year was 3 to 500,000, and currently I am 1.5 million to 1.7 million in revenue, within a 3-year period, resulting from the acts of coaching and really reprogramming mind. My goal was 2.5 million in revenue, and as of now, I can say 1.5 to 1.7, million, revenue generated from as a result of direct result of coaching and just reprogramming myself to, to grow my business, and we are looking, to hit 2.5 in the next,
Yeah,
upcoming year.
that was great. And also, you could speak to because I was very impressed, because obviously I know what your numbers were, but how you wanted to go from rebuilds. Just tie those together. They hear those. You wanted to go from rebuilds to some new builds, and you've been able to do some new builds.
Literally from the ground up, grading to the foundation to the roof, and one has already been turned over to we've got our CFO, and I plan on having a CFO, which is a certificate of occupancy for the next home that we built within the next 3 months.
That's exciting, man. I love, because I know that's the part of the project. That was part of the goal. I remember. I want to go to new build, so I was excited to hear that. And in fact, tell me this: what would the old Dwayne say if he saw the new Dwayne today?
What took you so long? What was you waiting for?
What was you waiting for? And another question along those lines: how has this impacted your family, or how's it showed up out of work for you?
Well, my family has always believed, in my abilities, and I think they were beyond the limiting factors before I was. A lot of time people see more into you than what you choose to see in yourself. They're not plagued with the self-doubt and things of that nature. They can just be pure and say, hey, I see this every day. You do this every day. You told me, you said, man, hell, you say you up every day doing what you got to do every day. The person that needed to be convinced was me. I had to be convinced that I believed, enough to do it, and so, my family has my life just where I wanted to be. I'm in this 30 plus years now. People, they get shocked when I tell them, I'm almost 35 years in the game. And they say, well, damn, how old are you? You look like you're 30. And I said, well, 50. I'll be 55 this year. And so for me, is that I have work to do. For me, it was really the end game to generate a company, whereas don't set foot on it and it still functions. That is my end game.
Well, that's a real business, right?
I'm a spiritual person, so I don't want to sit back and say, well, it wasn't your time. I don't say anything like that. I just did not embrace what I needed to embrace in order to make it happen sooner. And as I hit 50, something clicked in my mind and said, how are you going to do this at 60? So all of this time that I had invested in this and working for myself and establishing me and applying these skills, I said, well, what happens when you can't do it no more? What are you going to do? You ain't in the workforce no more. You've been working for yourself forever. What are you going to do? And so that started to be a pressing thing for me to, okay, well, I need to start embracing some of the things.
If you don't have time for coaching,
if you don't, business owners who have a desire to further their business, if you don't think that you have time for coaching, then be prepared to continue your forward progress as it is without growth. Because in my experience, you'll never get there until you learn to embrace something totally different that takes you out of your norm.
Some business owners feel like asking for help is a weakness. What would you say to them? What would you say to them now?
Well, some business owners, I would say to those who feel that asking for help is a weakness, I can only tell you about myself for those 30 years that I've been in business. And I don't know that I thought it was a weakness. I just thought that I knew it all. I had everything that I needed in order to grow. I just had to tweak it here, tweak it there. And I'm telling you, you will know what your potential is till you allow yourself to embrace principles that have been laid out before you that were successful. And then even more importantly, you got to learn to trust it, you know. So that was my issue. If you're on the fence, then you already entertain the mind, and you were like me, that you know there's something more that you have to do. You're on that fence right now because you're thinking. Great thought. Stop thinking and just do it. It's going to benefit you, and something is going to stick. It's going to propel you in a short time further than you've ever, been in all the years that you've been doing your own business. In a short time,
Amen.
I'd say embrace it.
And then I'm going to say this and then we'll end. This is why we do what we do. Dwayne didn't just grow in his business. He grew in his vision, his confidence, and his future. If you're ready for a breakthrough, let's talk. Stuck. It's for the ready.